This is Greg Monty, and this is the CERT Education series on the heat transfer module. And I just want to point out that all of our modules are built the same way. When you receive something from CERT, from NCA&T, you're going to receive a notebook, in this case a heat transfer module notebook, which contains inside all the paperwork and files that you'll need to conduct your class. Those files that are printed out will also be given to you on a memory stick. The memory stick will contain all of the documents, the lab sheets, the teacher guides, anything you need to teach the class, as well as the videos that you'll use to teach heat transfer to your classroom. In addition to those two items, you'll have a portable mouse which allows you to move around the room as you talk to the students and engage with them during the module, and you can turn on and off the video from wherever you are in the room as this will speak to your computer. So I'm going to set these aside for the time being and talk mostly about the actual kit that we're going to be using. And you're going to receive, in this particular case, the heat transfer module has a bag of styrofoam cups as well as a large box. I'm going to push this box to the side for a moment. I'm going to start to do this. What the purpose of this teacher prep video is to get you ready to run the class or to just introduce you to what's going to happen in the classroom. So you can start by taking everything out of the box. And what I recommend is that you organize your table. I've tried to use a rectangular table in my dining room area. And the first thing to do is to put all the C cups in one location. In my case, I'm going to put all 8 C cups in a row on the right side of myself to your left. And then I'm going to take all the D cups, and this is what should be in the plastic bag that's associated with the heat transfer kit, next to those C and D cups, because these are going to be combined in the experiment. The next thing you can do is put foam liners or a little bit smaller cups on the inside of these C and D cups. The purpose for this is that sometimes people push the thermometers a little bit too hard down and it punctures the cup, and we'd rather puncture one of the small cups rather than the larger ones. But don't worry, if anything gets damaged, we'll replace it when the kits are returned to us, as we'll check them all out. The next thing we can do is to empty the box itself. There are more cups in here. In fact, in total there are 66 cups involved in this experiment. I'm going to set the big box to the side for a moment. I'm going to start with the A and B cups as well. So I'm going to line up the 8 B cups to my left and to your right. And then additionally, there are even more cups involved here, and those are the A cups. I'm going to put the A cups next to the B cups because, again, these are going to be used in pairs at each station. Each of these boxes has a lid to tell you what's inside each of these small boxes. And this cup that came, the A cups came in the box that also contains the aluminum bars and the thermometers that are used in the experiment. So once I've placed all the cups and their liners, we can start taking the aluminum bars and the thermometers out. So here we've basically got 8 A cups, 8 B cups, 8 C cups, and 8 D cups, as well as a liner that goes inside each and every one of those cups to give a little extra protection. The next thing I'm going to do is take out the 16 thermometers. The thermometers, we provided enough to do 8 experiments. You need 2 thermometers each, so we need 16 thermometers. You'll do an experiment with A and B cups, and then you'll disassemble and then repeat the experiment with C and D. We would highly recommend that you get a helper or two, somebody who's qualified and responsible in your classroom to help you assemble all these things, because it does take a little bit of time to set up the experiment before class. Okay, so I've emptied all of the bars and thermometers. The last thing I need to do is to get out the last set of cups. This cup says used cool thermometers, and then it has some foam lids in it as well. I'm going to take out all the foam lids and stack them. Over here again we have 16 foam lids, and I've placed them there. So the next thing that you'll do in this experiment is to get water to put into the cups. And I'm not going to do that here in this prep video, but there's a number of things you want to put water into. You want to put water into this one of these small storage bins up to about the edge where this ridge is on the side, about halfway full. And you'll use that to cool the thermometers between experiment 1, which involves hot water. So the bar gets a little warm, and then during the transition from experiment 1 to experiment 2, you'll have placed all of these aluminum bars into that storage box with cold water in it, and it cools the bars down so that the next experiment starts up with the aluminum bar at tap water temperature. The other thing that's in the box that you'll have is a heating pot, and the heating pot is used to put hot water into cups A for experiment number 1. So you'll also put water into the hot water boiling pot up to about 2/3 or 3/4 full, and you'll only need to turn that on just before you conduct the experiment. So it only takes about 2 minutes for the temperature of that pot to get up to temperature, and if it gets up to 60 degrees centigrade or Celsius, excuse me, then that's appropriate. And you can do that. You can actually use one of these thermometers. You can push the on-off button, which is on the left of the thermometer, and once you turn that on, you can put it in the pot for a while, or have your helper check the temperature of the water as it's heating up. When it gets to 60 degrees, you can turn it off. The way the pot works is you push down to turn it on, and you lift up the switch to turn it off. It will turn off by itself once it reaches boiling temperature. It has a temperature sensor in it. Okay, so to assemble the experiment, you're going to take a hot A cup and a cold B cup, and you're going to take some of the hot water from this pot and pour it into A. I don't have any water in this for this prep video. And B will already have tap water in it. In fact, before you get started for the day, you can fill up the bottom 1 to 1.5 inches of each of these cups, B, C, and D, with tap water. So you have to fill 8 and 8 and 8, or 24 cups with about 1.5 inches of tap water in those cups. The only one you're going to be putting hot water into is cup A, and that's just before experiment number 1. So you have the 2 cups with water, 1 hot, 1 tap water. Then you can go through an assembly. You grab a foam lid, and it has a marker for the bar, which is a long black line, and it has a smaller thing for putting thermometers in. You'll take the aluminum bar, push it through the foam material, do the same with a second foam lid, then take 2 thermometers, insert them into each of the foam lids, and then put that apparatus or that setup into each of these 2 cups. Once you do this, you'll turn the thermometers on. I'll rotate them. On the left-hand side, you press the on button and the thermometers turn on. There's also a button on the right-hand side for switching between Fahrenheit or Celsius, and in this case we'd like them to be in the Celsius mode. and I've done that for both. So that is a station setup. It's hot A cups, B, and cold B cups. The thermometers are on, set to Celsius, and then you can have your helpers, or you can bring these to each of the tables. Since you have eight setups, you can do 8 groups of 4 if you have 32 people. If you have more than that, heaven forbid, you could do groups of 5 and get up to 40. Or you can use a fewer number of setups if you have a smaller set of classes. That's up to you to decide. But I think 8 should be sufficient. So that's one setup, and you'll replicate that setup for those 8 stations and bring them out to the tables for the students at the appropriate time when the experiment is about to begin. And that you'll be prompted when to do that by the video itself. The other setup is that you'll have 2 cups with just tap water, temperature water in them. You'll do the same setup. You'll take an aluminum bar, and these bars will actually, in fact, maybe I should just show you how that would be. They would be sitting in this cold water, because once you bring this experiment back, you'll disassemble it and put the bars into the cooling water to bring it back to tap water temperature, and you'll reassemble another setup with an aluminum bar and 2 foam lids and 2 thermometers, and you'll place these into the C and D cups and press the lids down slightly, again turning the thermometers on with the left hand button and then setting it to Celsius with the right hand button, which they're presently set to. So those are the 2 stations, and you'll do this for A and B. The students will take these apparatus at their tables. They'll be reading the temperatures and recording them in their lab sheets. And the timing for when to take those measurements is all contained in the video, so you don't have to set a stopwatch or make any notations about that. It all is automatically handled by the classroom video. And that's pretty much it. As I said, the experiment is set up in such a way that when you bring A and B back to your table, you'll just disassemble it carefully, because the hot water could be up to 60 degrees. You'll take it apart. And when you're done with this, at the end of the day, you can pour all the water out. One of the easiest ways to do that is just to empty the cooling water into your sink in your classroom, then pour all the water from the cups into that bin, and then empty that into the sink. That makes for fewer trips to the sink. You don't have to carry each cup individually over. And you'll take apart all the materials, the thermometer, the lids, the aluminum bars, and you'll have them all disassembled at the end of the day, or getting them ready to be used again for additional classes if you're teaching more than one class this lesson on heat transfer. So at the beginning of each class, you'll have an organized station that looks a little bit like what I have here, and then you'll be able to assemble these materials quickly for your class and get them distributed so that they can perform their experiment. It does take a little bit of time between the exercise for experiment number 1 and getting ready for experiment number 2, because you have to bring all those materials back to the table, disassemble them, cool the aluminum bars, and then reassemble them with the cups C and D that are at tap water temperature. I would recommend that you do that while the students are drawing a diagram for experiment 1 of what the actual setup looked like and what they observed. And that's talked about in the actual classroom video. Okay, so that is pretty much it. It's pretty simple. The last thing that I want to talk about is how to put it all back together when you want to ship it back to CERT. Remember that we will be delivering these kits to you, as well as the notebooks and so forth, when you need them. And then when you want to bring them back to us, we can have somebody come over and pick them up. we'll arrange to make sure that you don't have to do any driving or dropping off of any materials. We want to make this as simple and as plug and play as possible for you. Okay, so at the end of the day, at the end of the time that you've used these kits, we would like you to take the time to let all of these materials dry fully. So it's important to us that they're dry so that we don't have to disassemble them in our facility. We don't have a lot of room. As you can tell, it takes up quite a bit of room. So if you could leave the cups, maybe even take the small liners out of the cups and let them all stand out on the table overnight in your classroom where you had your table set up. Let them all dry, let the thermometers dry, let the foam, squeeze out the foam lids if they're really wet, and let them dry individually on the tabletop. And then the following day, when you come into the classroom, just reassemble. So let's go through a reassembly process, and you can always come back to this video to see how this is done. The first thing we're going to do is put the aluminum bars into one of these small containers. And I recommend that you follow this video because we tried to organize it in such a way that it's simple to fit everything together. And as you saw, it's relatively tight when you took it apart. So you have to sort of follow these instructions when you're putting it back together. And I'm doing that here. So I'm taking the 8 hot cups, the 8A cups, and putting them between the aluminum bar, as you can see here. And then the last step is simply to put the thermometers back into the case, and they fit fairly easily. It's not too crowded. You have to do a little manipulating to get them all to fit properly. And then you can take the lid for the 8 aluminum rods, the 16 thermometers, and the 8 large A cups, and place it on top of that box. The next step, we'll put the foam lids into another one of these small containers. We'll take the thermometer. This was used to cool thermometers. I didn't talk about that, but you put water in this, and when you disassemble the AB experiment number 1, you'll put the thermometers in here to also bring them back to tap water temperature. So the way I do this is I take 7 of the lids and place them in one side of the box, reserving 2 lids, put 7 more next to that in the box. You can see like this. Take these last 2 foam lids and push them into the cup that says used to cool thermometers, and just place that into the box. And then you can put the lid on that says 16 foam tops and the cooling thermometer cup. That's the second box. And the last box will be the B cups and the small liner cups. So you'll have all these on your table, dried out from overnight, sitting overnight. And you'll just take them apart, put the 16 liner cups in, put the 8 B cups in. You'll see they look like this. And then you can simply put the lid, which says 8 large B cups and 16 small cups, in. And then this pot will have also been emptied out of any water, and you place this back into this box. And the way that you'll store all of these things in the box is relatively simple. The most important step is the first one. When you place the hot water pot in, place it with the handle towards the center. That way it fits best. Then you can place the other 3 small storage boxes into the large box in any order that you wish. It doesn't matter. And lastly, put the lid onto the top of the big box. And then as we started, we had the aluminum we had a small plastic bag, and we also had a lot of these C and D cups, so I'm going to disassemble these together. Because they're all in nice order, it makes it simple to pick them apart, put all the C's with the C's, all the D's with the D's, all the liner cups with themselves, and then you have 3 stacks, C, D, and liner cups. You can place these dry cups into the plastic bag, tie them lightly together, and you're done. So that is the entire heat transfer module setup. It's quite simple. You'll have a portable mouse to turn on and off the video, as I said. You'll have a memory stick that contains all the videos, all the PowerPoint files, all the teacher aids, the teacher guides, the student lab sheets, any documentation that's necessary will be on your stick, which you'll be able to download the information onto your computer for displaying on your video screen. And all that information that's in here as a hard copy will also be contained in your notebook that you'll receive for the heat transfer module. We'd like to get all of this material back. You can certainly keep all the files that are on there for future use. We've provided PowerPoint files so that you can make alterations to the PowerPoint documents if you would. We've built the videos, the lesson video, and the enrichment videos based on PowerPoint documents. And those PowerPoint documents are contained in this disk, this memory stick. And you'll be able to use that and make alterations if you'd like to add or delete materials and or make your own presentation. That's it. I appreciate your help, and give us a call when you're all done with your experiment. Let us know how it goes, and we'll come and pick up your kit from you. Thank you.